'Cause like a winter tonight, I thought I would always have light. The quick flash that you gave to me, so dark I could barely see. Looking
From wherever you are around the world, welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be exploring the world of predictive analytics. Well, what is that? We're going to tell you all about it. With us today is Dr. Eric Siegel. He's the founder of Predictive Analytics World and Text Analytics World and executive editor of the Predictive Analytics Times. He has appeared on Bloomberg TV and radio, Fox News, BNN in Canada, Israel National Radio. He's also been featured in his book in Business Week, CBS, Money Watch, the Financial Times, Forbes, and too many more to count. We don't have enough time on the show for everything he's appeared on. So let's welcome Dr. Eric Siegel. Thank you for joining the circle, Dr. Siegel.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks for having me.
This is a wonderful book. Here it is again. What is predictive analytics? And, well, you know what? It just seems to beg the question, what is predictive analytics?
Great. Well, an informal definition of predictive analytics is the subtitle of the book, which is the power to predict who will click, buy, lie, or die. So it's technology. Predictive analytics is technology that learns from data. Data is experience. It's a recording of things that have happened. It's the aggregate or collective experience of an organization to learn from it analytically, mathematically, automatically with computer algorithms in order to render predictions such as whether the individual will click, buy, lie, or die, any kind of behavior that we may exhibit as individuals that would be valuable to organizations in order to target marketing, law enforcement and investigation, healthcare treatment, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a very universally applicable technology.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned something here because I was thinking about this before the show, and there was an article that came out, I think on, I can't remember if it was Discover magazine, one of these magazines that deals with science, and they were talking about some kind of algorithm, I think it was in the South, where they can predict areas of crime, hotspots, and they're positioning a certain amount of police force in that area at certain times to be able to try to reduce it. Is that kind of how this whole thing is working?
That is an example of law enforcement using predictive analytics. What you're referring to, and we're seeing reports from more and more precincts around the United States, is where a police force will use predictive analytics to predict which particular neighborhood or area or intersection within a city is most likely to exhibit criminal behavior over an immediate time frame in order to decide where to send squads. So that's one. That's not on the per individual human basis, but there's another area in law enforcement where they're applying the same technique actually to make the prediction, will this individual commit a crime? And specifically, it's called recidivism prediction. Recidivism means, are you going to commit a crime again upon release? So this is applied only to convicted felons and is provided as input in certain states to inform sentencing decisions by judges and to inform parole decisions. So a parole board or judge will receive the predictive score, let's say a probability of recidivism, of committing the crime again when this felon is released. And they'll take that into consideration in their decision. So literally crime predicting computers are determining, are informing and influencing how long individuals stay incarcerated.
That's amazing. Do we have any statistics on how well it's doing?
We don't have a lot of numbers that we're aware of, but there have been published reports showing that it predicts significantly better than guessing, and in that way is another data point for the humans to take into consideration. In general, across all these types of areas where organizational processes, all these millions of decisions made, not just per felon, but per any of us for targeting marketing, healthcare treatment, et cetera, fraud investigation, whether to receive a credit card, are you a good credit risk. All of these per individual predictions are not about predicting perfectly like a crystal ball, but rather about predicting significantly better than guessing, which in aggregate for an organization's mass scale operations has a huge win in terms of the overall effectiveness and in terms of marketing and those kinds of financial applications, credit risk and such. It is an improvement to the bottom line profit.
That's fantastic stuff. Now, I know in the book you mentioned a little bit it can predict human behavior, so that's what you're looking at, the marketing side, criminal side. Is there any other sides that really stood out for you as you wrote the book?
Well, there's so many examples. It's unbelievable across all the sectors. There's also workforce, so the individual employee who's likely to excel at a job, who's a good prospective hire, who's going to quit their job. That's predicted in order to target retention offers, try to keep that employee around, this kind of thing. So there's so many examples. In fact, I put a central table color insert in the middle of the book. It's got 147 mini case studies across all these different sectors of different organizations using all the stuff in all these different ways. So it's not just a great idea. Several years ago, it was deployed in so many places, but as far as the breadth, it was sort of felt like this is a great idea, this is going to happen, and it definitely has happened.
That's amazing, 147.
Yeah, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. I actually, the conference series I founded, Predictive Analytics World, takes place 9 times a year internationally, and we have targeted events that are specific for healthcare, government, workforce, and manufacturing, as well as general business like marketing, fraud detection, credit scoring, and insurance applications. And what we're just seeing is case study after case study after case study coming in, and people from these different organizations and companies coming in to present how predictive analytics provide value. So what I've been talking with you so far about is how it's so valuable for an organization. And we can imagine that is valuable in certain ways indirectly to all of us as individual citizens and consumers. But the fact is there's all kinds of ways that there are all kinds of examples in ways that it actually influences and benefits us as individuals. So it's not just about corporations improving their profit. It is a way for that to happen. Corporations are increasing their power even more with this type of technology. I think it's important for everyone to be aware of what's being done and how the data about them is being used, not just to drive decisions, but to use it as learning cases to examine and to analyze, to make these predictions, to do the analytical learning process. But in any case, it's very much a benefit. So for example, how much less junk mail are you going to get if an organization is predicting more accurately what you may respond to, what might be more interesting to you? How much better are the search engine search results because that prediction, the ads that are shown next to the search results? The spam filter is very much the same exact core technology. It's predictive analytics predicting, hey, this is spam. Don't bring this into the inbox of your email. And that spam would cripple your email experience if that weren't being filtered out with predictive models in this way. Healthcare is a huge burgeoning area. There's so many applications with regard to driving all these clinical decisions or informing them. What are the chances for this individual healthcare patient and scenario, the symptoms they're showing, that this particular treatment, whether it's a surgical treatment, pharmaceutical treatment, is most likely to lead to a positive outcome for that patient, or if untreated, what's their mortality rate? What's the chances of death if you do apply this surgery? And then beyond these clinical decisions, there's a whole bunch of other healthcare types of applications. So for example, it's very important to stick to your prescribed medication, but many patients are not compliant, a really huge amount, and that's very costly in many ways. But there's only limited resources to kind of, let's say, send a nurse practitioner and knock on the door and say, hey, are you being compliant? Let's check this out. You want to predict who's likely to not be compliant in order to target those resources. So just one place you see where within a sector, there's so many different ways the stuff applies and potentially really benefits us as individuals, as individual consumers, healthcare patients, et cetera.
Hi, welcome to Adelante. This is Adelante Recovery, and my name is Yvette Kuglin, and I'm part of the staff.
Adelante Recovery Center has helped people in dual diagnosis for 5 years. We accept most PPO insurances and provide luxury accommodations and 24-hour support. To speak with an admissions counselor, call 1-888-242-4450.
A lot of time we don't even know what's wrong with us, and sometimes we need to get away to figure that out. So if you want to go for a little retreat out in Corona Del Mar, which is a confidential location. We're here to help. So we're only a phone call away. Thank you.
On the show, we like to see both sides of the coin. We have about 6 minutes left, so I want to flip it a little bit now. We saw the good side, definitely a lot of benefits to it. Understanding human behavior by gathering the data. Before we get to the other side, because I know in your book you also mentioned there's the evil side. Before we get to that, politics. I saw that. We're getting into the season here soon, picking a president. How does the world of politics use predictive analytics?
Well, the Obama presidential campaign for 2012 used predictive analytics to decide how to campaign to voters, and specifically which door to knock on for a campaign volunteer, or who to make a phone call if you're a campaign volunteer. Also targeted direct mail in very much the same way. So they're literally predicting for every single voter in the United States, what are the chances that campaign contact, that army of volunteers, is now made that much more powerful because they're targeted more effectively. Knock on this door, there's a good chance, or a better than average chance, that you'll positively influence the individual to vote towards our candidate for that the people driving that campaign for Obama. Don't knock on that door. Let's totally just avoid that. They're not canvassing the neighborhood. Every volunteer is reading this list. Don't knock on the doors that are not on the list. These people may be prone or predicted as likely to be negatively influenced. It's better just to leave them alone. They're like sleeping dogs. Let sleeping dogs lie. So that was really a game changer. The first time predictive analytics was used in that way during presidential campaign internationally, to our knowledge, and a real game changer. We really do expect to see a lot more of that type of story emerge with regard to the 2016 presidential campaigns.
I don't even know what to say about that. It's kind of creepy. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of everything. It's kind of a mixed bag in my emotional head. So what's the evil side here?
Marketing is a very powerful thing, and this is making it more powerful, right? So is power evil? I didn't use the word evil in the book, but I said that there's certain ethical issues that come up, and I devoted all of chapter 2 to that question, not with regard to marketing applications, and I'm not sure that the ethical questions about marketing applications is the same thing as presidential campaigns. That's a marketing of a presidential candidate. I'm not sure that those are any qualitatively different from marketing in general and the targeting thereof. It's just that maybe it exaggerates the questions because it's done that much more effectively. But I focus on 3 particular cases I think are juicy and interesting with regard to this issue, because it is a powerful thing. It is a thing where organizations are getting more power in this way and becoming that much more effective and efficient. And with, as Spider-Man's wise uncle said, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Okay, so for example, what's being predicted could be this very potent, sensitive piece of information, such as, is this individual pregnant? Now, there was a story a few years ago that got very famous where it turns out Target, the retailer, predicts which of their individual customers is pregnant based not on some medical information or pharmacy prescriptions, but based on their general buying behavior. And it turns out combinations of certain products purchased earmark certain customers as being much more likely than average to be pregnant, which is a very valuable thing from a marketing standpoint, but not necessarily the kind of thing that you would expect as a pregnant individual that a marketing department has ascertained about you if you've not volunteered that information to them. So pregnancy, this crime detection, the crime prediction example that I spoke of a few minutes ago, I do see that not so much as a privacy issue, but a very tricky set of questions around how much authority we're giving to an automaton, one that very well may be more precise and effective than an individual human, but one that nonetheless will make errors.
You saw that with Minority Report, right?
Yeah, so in Minority Report, the movie, Tom Cruise, Steven Spielberg movie, they're predicting a crime before it happens amongst the general public, and it is like a crystal ball, which is impossible. We cannot predict the future like a crystal ball. That just doesn't exist, and never will. But we can predict much better than guessing, and that can be informative. In the case of what's really happening, this is only over people that have already been convicted of a crime, and the question is, will they commit one again? It's helping determine their prison sentence.
So no Tom Cruise here.
There's no Tom Cruise or crystal balls. That's a fantasy, but there is very much an analogous scenario.
Fascinating stuff, really fascinating. Last question before we take off. We mentioned all these different predictions of the capability of doing it. I mean, obviously it's better than guessing, as you said. What do you see as the best use of it going into the future?
Well, I think that all of these healthcare applications are one of the most directly and clearly beneficial things to society. There's a huge upswing now on the use of predictive modeling. That's the core technology for predictive analytics within all kinds of healthcare applications. I also think that there's something to be said about improving efficiency in general, right? I mean, less junk mail doesn't just mean that there's less annoying stuff to throw into the garbage. It also is better for the environment because that many less pamphlets are being printed, right? So there's something to be said about efficiency. There's something to be said about the potential. It's hard to speak to the economic factors and the effect of efficiency without getting political, but at least in principle, there's a way that can help. I also think there's incredibly fascinating movement, just as far as the core science, in the fact that it's approaching human levels of ability in certain realms. So for example, many people are familiar that IBM created a computer called Watson that beat the two all-time human champs of the TV quiz show Jeopardy. That computer, and you can watch the videos of the televised match. It's amazing. The computer just answers the Jeopardy quiz questions correct one after another. It's uncanny. It's actually driven at the core by a predictive model. It's predicting based on everything that's known about a very hairy and complex grammatical question in English, in a human language, based on anything that's known about that and stuff that can be pulled in from sort of web searches, although it's not live. They just have a captured part of the web there. Predict, is this candidate answer likely to turn out to be the correct answer to that question? So they very much use the same core technology where the learning cases, the examples, is data, previous questions from decades of that TV show being aired of the question and what turned out to be the correct answer. And so that's kind of remarkable. I do think we're elevating science with the further deployment and research and development of this core technology.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Dr. Siegel, for being on the show. Thank you for writing this book.
You're
Once
welcome.
again, predictive analytics. People are going to want to get a hold of you. Where do we go, Dr. Siegel?
You can go to The Prediction Book, thepredictionbook.com, find out about me, the conference, the book, etc.
Perfect. Thanks again, Dr. Siegel, for
Sure.
being on the circle.
Sure thing. Thanks, Carlos. Take care.
Predictive analytics, predictive.com.
It's predictiveanalyticsworld.com, and there's thepredictionbook.com.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, our motto is simple. Wherever there's psychology involved, and I'm sure analytics already predicted it, we're there. We'll see you next time, everyone.